The battlefield has been reshaped irreversibly. And that's not just my assessment, that's the assessment of the former general of the Ukrainian army. He had this article out, and this is carried in Euromaidan Press afterwards, and I'll go through much of it, where he's explaining just how different warfare is now than it was just a couple of years ago. Ukraine's former commander-in-chief declares that drones have made regular war obsolete. It's not that war is obsolete. It's that war as we knew it just a year, 2 years, 3 years ago can no longer be conducted in that way. A $500 drone destroys a $2 million tank. That's right. I mean, and that's awesome. And I'll explain why that's awesome in just a little bit. The defensive advantage that protected armies for centuries, gone. So we can't think in the same terms that we used to think in. So here's Zaluzhnyi warns mass UAV warfare has made traditional battle impossible. Again, this is carried into Euromaidan Press. In 2023, then Commander-in-Chief of Ukraine's Armed Forces, General Valery Zaluzhnyi, wrote a sobering analysis for The Economist about the deadly stalemate. Trenches, minefields, killing zones had returned to the front line. It looked disturbingly like World War I. And it really did feel like World War I. And that, okay, so what happened to Zaluzhnyi was that after the withdrawal of Russian forces from Kherson, they allowed that army to escape rather than destroy it before it could get across the river. Okay. In allowing them to escape, they took Kherson, they got the city back, but the army was there. And General Surovikin, who's no longer in play because of other reasons, but General Surovikin created essentially the Surovikin line that was mined and was hard to penetrate, and the Ukrainians couldn't cross it. Now, the Russians weren't going to be able to, come very fast and have a blitzkrieg either. But yeah, it made it very, very difficult for Zaluzhnyi. Okay. Almost 2 years later, Zaluzhnyi has returned to this theme with an even harsher verdict. Everything changed the moment drones arrived in mass. Okay, and I think that's exactly right. I've been saying that for some time now. For centuries, military strategists operated on fundamental assumption. Defenders held the advantage. And this is bad for Ukraine that this is no longer the case, because being the defender was a great thing for Ukraine. You could attrit more of the Russian attackers, and you still can a little bit, but it's the drones have changed things. That principle has now shattered completely. Okay, the battlefield has become completely transparent and deprived of any possibility for maneuver. Okay, so you're not going to see a big breakthrough on the battlefield. Like if you're worried as you look at the battlefield, like no, they're just going to punch through and then they're just going to keep going. That's not what's going to happen. I can promise you that that's not what's going to happen, because the battlefield's transparent. Everybody can see everything, and there's no room for maneuver warfare. It's really, you're just entrenched on either side. Okay. Any concentration of soldiers or equipment becomes a target within minutes of detection. What began as eyes in the sky, simple reconnaissance UAVs watching troop movements, quickly evolved into something far deadlier: cheap, mass-produced FPV drones, small enough to evade most countermeasures, but powerful enough to carry explosives. So I've seen the mechanisms by which they can drop a grenade and grenade can go off. I've seen larger bombs. I've seen all kinds of things, but it's really hard to knock down a drone. So if you have particularly fiber optic drones, if you have an FPV drone that is dependent on the internet or depending on electronic signals, maybe there's some countermeasures there. But with fiber optics, it's almost impossible to knock those down. And AI are going to be the same way. They're going to be locking on a target like the Terminator. And so things have changed radically. Now, here's what else has happened. A $500 drone can destroy a $2 million tank. A swarm of 20 drones can eliminate an entire infantry squad. Okay, so this has gone to Ukraine's advantage. Okay, so like I said, the defensive thing has worked against Ukraine, but this part has gone to Ukraine's advantage. When Russia had much more of a numerical advantage in armor, $500 drones, now both sides can do this to eat the other side, right? Russians can do this to Ukrainians and Ukrainians can do this to Russians, but it's working to Ukraine's advantage to knock out more of their armor because they had such a huge, sizable advantage over Ukrainians in that category, and it was just devastating to the Russians. Okay, but it can be done both ways. Russia's brutal adaptation. Russian forces have adapted to this new reality with tactics that are brutal from a human perspective, but devastatingly effective militarily. They hurl small assault groups at Ukrainian positions in coordinated waves, exploiting the gaps created by Ukraine's defensives. So, this is why you're seeing these small little attacks rather than. So, again, what drones have done is make it impossible to just send huge meat wave assaults a la World War I and just overrun the position because the drones can come out and do stuff. Meanwhile, Ukraine, meanwhile, has been forced into desperate survival tactics. Traditional defensive lines have given way to small, isolated groups scattered across vast areas. So when you see the trench lines, they're these little tiny pockets all over the place that makes it difficult to get through, but it's not the same as like the Maginot Line. It's not that. Each unit must survive independently, constantly hunted by Russian assault teams and drone swarms. Now, this is what's really important or really interesting about the change. The safe rear no longer exists. Everything within 40 kilometers of the front lines lives under constant threat of drone and artillery strikes. It used to be that artillery was the king of battle. I don't know what you put over a king. Maybe the emperor of battle might be drone. I mean, drones are really powerful. Command posts, supply lines, and medical stations all have become legitimate targets visible to circling drones. Okay, so what are we talking about here? Well, let's look at this. A new claimed FPV record. I showed this about a week ago, a little less than a week ago. Ukraine's Ivano-Franko Group drone unit says it has struck Russian military vehicle 55 kilometers deep behind enemy lines. Like 55 kilometers. So it used to be that there was a distance of about 40 kilometers separating. So here's what I'm saying is, like, if these guys are going to attack from down here and these guys want to defend or move forward from here, there's this like drone line here separating. Maybe there's like in this area, it's like instant death. Okay. So you don't want to try to cross over that, but it's actually getting backed up further, and it's not 20, it's now 30, now it's 40, now it's 45 and 50. So there's going to be this separation where it's only fields of death of drones. And if you're trying to cross this on foot, on a motorcycle, in a vehicle, it's really, really hard to get between. Okay. And so it's going to start looking more like this is the North Korean demilitarized zone, and it's going to start looking like that. But it's not because there are mines on the ground as much as there are mines in the air. I mean, that's the analogy that I would use, is mines in the sky. Okay. So there's no safe rear. The rear is much further back now. Okay, Zaluzhnyi identifies 4 critical areas where Ukraine must achieve technological superiority or face catastrophic defeat. 1, counter-drone systems. So this is the first thing. If you can figure out how to create counter-drones, not just mobile electronic warfare units, small-scale air defense networks capable of downing swarming drones, attack drones, Ukraine needs thousands of these systems, not dozens. You have to figure out some mechanism by which you can, because it's like both sides have a weapon that's really great offensively, but it's hard to defend against. It's almost like arrows. It's kind of hard to defend against them. Okay, mass drone production. That's number 2. Creating enough FPV drones and loitering munitions to match Russia's industrial scale. Now, Russia can pump it out. Now, currently you have volunteer-driven production, while innovative cannot compete with state-level manufacturing. So what they have to do is link the innovation that you're getting from the decentralizedness of what is being done in Ukraine, and then you have to be able to ramp it up very quickly. So if they can do that, and I think they're able to do that, but they have to be able to do it. Then the third is smart battlefield networks, integrated systems connecting sensors and software and robotics into command networks that react faster than human decision-making allows. It has to be AI-driven sensors telling us, okay, these threats are coming from this place. And so they already have these listening posts all across Ukraine to hear when drones are coming in. And then leveraging tech talent. Ukraine's IT expertise and engineering creativity must be channeled directly into defense innovation at an unprecedented scale. So they really have to work that out. Yuri Kasanov, founder of Matrix UAV, a drone warfare expert, said if we don't eliminate the technological gap, find an effective weapons against drones, our infantry will simply die in their positions. That's right. You have to figure out how to work around or how to prevent this, or if not, you're going to just have to back up and seed ground and just keep, because what you're going to see is something that looks like this. Like, I mean, it's just going to, like, this is just death in this area. Death, DEATH. I can't spell it or write this as fast as I can spell it. Okay. Yeah, that's what you're seeing here in this no man's land. Okay. So, Casanov highlights critical structural problem. Most Ukrainian drone innovation relies on volunteers or small private companies, which is brilliant. They're dedicated, but lacking the funding and industrial capacity for mass production. But I'm telling you this from my expertise. I'm a management professor. My emphasis, my PhD is in organizational leadership. The decentralization that Ukraine brings to the table is huge. It helps them do things quicker, faster, whatever. But they have to be able to convert that into mass production of that through whatever systems that they have in place. So they have to have that that industrial capacity for mass production. Otherwise, it doesn't go. It doesn't. There's a disconnect. It's like trying to vacuum without plugging in the vacuum cleaner. You have to get that done. Okay, so that's what's happening here. Now, with all that being said, this demilitarized zone, it's kind of like, okay, so let me show you this. I showed you this morning. Without Hungary, the EU drone wall will be like a Maginot line in the sky. I think drone wall is the wrong analogy for what we're talking about when you're talking about a drone wall, because the wall is porous. It's not that. It would be like a drone minefield in the sky that could keep those on the ground out, but it's not going to keep other drones from coming through. That's the trick. Unless the technology changes and you have anti-defense, anti-drone defenses. If you have that, then you have something different. But so this demilitarized zone, it's like it's being, ramped up to be even larger and larger and larger, and as the drone technology improves. And so that's okay, but those drones are still coming through, or rockets will come through and things along those lines. So we have to be worried about that. And NATO has gotten the message now after the attack on, what was it, September 10th or so, after that attack on Poland, they're like, this isn't really working. Here's Mark Rutte saying, we can't keep shooting down $2,000 drones with $500,000 missiles. It's just not sustainable. And I'm going to do that after my shout out here. Nick Santo is an undergraduate patron. Thank you to Nick for that. And that's my shout out. But here's the image. It's a turtle on a skateboard. And the turtle, you put this turtle on a little skateboard and that thing can cruise, man. You give him the technology. And this is what's happened with drones. Look at this guy go. And a cat's running from him. Look at that. A snapping turtle on a skateboard. Yeah. It's everything's different at this point. Okay, I hope that helps you understand what drone warfare is and how radically this is changing the battlefield. It's not going to be the same again. Tell me what you thought about what you saw in the comments below. Thank you for the time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.